Hi friends of Solar Body Alchemy, how are you? Welcome to this second week with Scorpio, or first week with Scorpio. Haha, I don't remember. Sorry guys, I just had a very long week and this is actually our second week with Scorpio. So I was thinking a lot about the theme to pick for this week. And in the end, actually, I got inspired by this book that I am reading, which is called Philosophy. And I really love the title of this book. So I have decided that this week reading will be about failing. And how about we connect to our failures, and how do I connect this theme with Scorpio? Well, somehow failure, we tend to push failures in deep below our level of consciousness, in a place where we cannot see them, where we cannot feel them. Somehow we feel like failure is something to be ashamed of. So I really want to work with you guys on how we can connect to failure, what failure can tell us, what we can learn from it. Okay, so let's start immediately, and welcome actually to everyone who joined me today. I hope that the guys from the meetup group are here. Thank you very much again to all the people that feedback me about not finding the link for joining me on Sundays. So I have added the link to our YouTube channel into our meetup group. If you cannot find it, please let me know and I will email it to you. Okay, but without further ado, let's start failure and let's see what it does have to say, what it has to say to our friends of Aries. Okay, so let's start. First card of the day, first tarot of the day, the Magician, which is actually an interesting card, the Magician, because the Magician is someone who makes things happen. And if we look at the table, it basically has one symbol from all the tarot suits on the table, meaning that he uses everything to make things happen. So how do we I link this apparently winning card to such a delicate topic as failing, and especially how do I link this to my friends of Aries? Well, Aries, first of all, you are someone that really goes full head into problems, okay? You are the spring, the first sign of spring, so you are full of energy, full of passion. You perhaps don't think through too much, you just act, pure instinct, okay? Sometimes. And these actually relate very well to this card. But the message of this card is actually, come on, hang on 1 second. I know that you're full of passion, that you're full of energy, but sometimes you need to assess the situation. And most importantly, you need to learn to use everything that is on your table. I know that perhaps you have favorite routes, you have favorite tools, you really trust your instincts, but sometimes you need to stop, you need to assess what's on your table, exactly as the Magician does with everything here, and you need to do the same. And by doing so, you will make things happen, okay? And if you don't do so, that's where failure happens. Failure happens because somehow you get lost in translation, okay? Perhaps you go too much head on. You don't stop to assess. You don't see what's the table, what's being offered to you, the help that is being offered to you. And by not doing so, by not accepting help, that's where failure appears in your life, okay? So think about that during the week. Taurus, let's see about you. Sorry. The Six of Wands. Interesting. We have two cards that are the opposite of failure. because we had the Magician before, now we have the Six, and the Six of Wands is all about celebration. We have this guy that is being, that is triumphant, actually, is being kind of, the image suggests that perhaps he's entering as a triumphant guy into a town, and is crowned with laurels, which is the symbol of triumph. So how do we link this card with failure, and most importantly to my friends of Taurus? Well, interestingly enough, dear friends of Taurus, this card, it's the opposite of failure, as I was saying. But what this card seems to suggest is, be careful about the people that are celebrating with you today, okay? So in this case, it really seems to suggest not the failure itself, not the thing that you are doing, because most likely the things that you are doing will bring you success, but rather the people that are surrounding you, exactly as these guys are surrounding our knight, okay? Why am I saying this? Because you see, when you are being successful, it's very easy to have lots of friends. But a friend in need is a friend indeed. So really pay attention not to the people that are with you now that you are successful, but rather to the people that were with you from the beginning, where nobody knew you and when you were a failure. Because those are the people that actually will help you to build a very stable success in the future, okay? And you are all about stability, dear friends of Taurus. So really pay attention to the people that are around you. And also think about, if you are experiencing a failure right now, think about the people you would like to celebrate with once you overcome this temporary failure, okay? Because those are the people that really you need to keep into your life, okay? Gemini, let's see about you. And we have the beautiful Nine of Pentacles. So the Nine of Pentacles, again, it is a success card. It's a woman, it's a wonderful woman actually, and she is strolling in this luxuriant garden, and she is dressed magnificently, she takes her time, she really enjoys who she is. So again, there is a theme that is coming up in our cards about success and about failure. It's like the cards want to show us both aspects of the same coin, because at the end of the day, success is only failure, is only people that didn't stop at the first failure became successful, okay? So dear friends of Gemini, I know that you are those kind of people that have very quick mind, and sometimes you are accused of being a little bit shallow. You don't like to indulge over things. If something bores you, you move on very quickly, okay? But in this case, this attitude of yours might lead to failure, because the Nine of Pentacles really suggests, so Pentacles is a earth card, okay, so it's really stable. In this case, this card seems to suggest that you really need to shift gear. Not to change your personality completely, we don't want that, but simply to reflect a little bit about the pattern of your failure. So if your failure has always been generated by the fact that you moved on too soon, that you didn't give a person a second chance, that you didn't give yourself a second chance, this card really suggests, hang on. If you want to stroll in your luxuriant garden, if you want to dress magnificently, if you want to reach any degree of success in your life, you actually need to hang on for longer. You need to learn from the earth a little bit, not, as I said, not to change your personality, but simply to develop that part of your personality that needs to be grounded a little bit. Okay, so work on these aspects of you this week, okay? Cancer, let's see what the cards have to tell you. Sorry guys, I'm trying to balance loads of things. 9 of Wands. How do we link this card to failure? Well, see, in your case, dear friends of Cancer, what's failure for you? Most likely it's not failure on the practical side of things. So you don't consider a failure failing at your job, but you consider failing at your relationships because you are such an emotional sign. And in this case, we have a guy that has been hurt in his head. His head is bandaged, which really seems to suggest mind problems, emotional problems. This card for me really represents resilience. So he's someone that of course is a bit wary because he's been hurt during the battle. But he of course is wary, he is not putting himself out there completely, but still he tries to put himself out there, okay? And how do we link this card, particularly for you, dear friends of Cancer, to failure? Well, in your case, failure is when you don't put yourself emotionally out there, okay? It's like if you are being this guy, okay? So not too soft, but kind of you don't trust people and you are going into the shell instead of touching your core. Now, of course, going into the shell, i.e. putting on a brave face, it's not necessarily a bad thing to do. The problem is when you put on a brave face all the time. Okay, that's actually the failure in your case, dear friends of Cancer. Not recognizing when you need to access that soft core that is in you, and you just carry on. You always put on a brave face, always put on a brave face. That's not healthy. Okay, so just reflect on this week. Leo, let's see what the cards have to tell you. King of Wands. So interesting that we picked so many Wands cards in this reading. Now, Wands, for someone, well, I repeat myself. I have said it many times during my previous readings. Wands is all about passion, fire, energy, and so on. And again, we have picked a card that apparently has nothing to do with failure. Actually, he is a king, exactly as you are the king of the forest, dear friends of Leo. So how do we link this card to failure? When does a king fail? A king fails when he doesn't serve his people. And it's exactly what happens with you, dear friends of Leo. So when do you fail, or when do you experience failure? So you might experience failure, for example, if you have over-promising things. If you have been over-promising things to your staff, to your family, and you are not able to keep your word, that's when failure comes into play for you. So what's the message of the card? Well, this card really seems to suggest, be a king, own your actions. So if you have been over-promising and you can't keep your words, instead of going into a fight, just own the action and just admit, I'm sorry, I have been over-promising, I can't do this, it's too much for me. And magically, you will see that many problems in your life most likely will either disappear or they will be much easier to deal with. Okay, so that's the message of the card. Moving on. Virgo. Let's see what the cards have to tell you, dear friends of Virgo. And we have picked the Queen of Wands. They really didn't want to stay apart this evening. Interesting. So, the Queen of Wands. What does it mean, the Queen of Wands? And how interesting it is that we have picked the Queen. So, as I said earlier on, Wands is all about fire, passion, energy. How do we link the Queen of Wands to you, dear friends of Virgo, and most importantly to the theme of today, which is failure? So, I asked before, when does a king fail? When he doesn't serve his people. When does a queen fail? Well, traditionally speaking, I'm following the history of the Taurus here. A queen fails when she doesn't take care of her people. And by taking care, I mean in a slightly different accent from a king. So if the king traditionally is more proactive, the queen traditionally is more about taking care, okay, more nourishing, really more motherly. So in this particular case, dear friends of Virgo, when do you experience failure? Well, we know that you are really good at finding solutions, at providing solutions, and in this way you are very motherly in a sense, perhaps a little bit overbearing, but still motherly. And as Kate put it in our readings back in the Virgo season, we miss the Virgo when the Virgo is gone. And she is being, or he is being so essential, but the work that they do is invisible almost. And it's so well done, it's so hidden in the structure that you don't notice it until they are gone. So, when do you experience failure? Well, might be quite an easy answer. You might experience failure when you are not as perfect as you would like to be. However, I would like you to reflect on something different. So you might experience failure when you feel that you haven't done enough to take care of others. But I would also like you to reflect on, have you done enough to take care of yourself? Because you see, you put lots of structure in place, you're very good at doing things for others. But what about you? Where are you in the equation? And it's very important to reflect on this, because sometimes you feel that you have failed, but actually people might either not notice how much you have been doing for them, so the failure, quotation marks, is in your head, or the opposite, you have done a lot, but you have still failed, quotation mark, because people have not recognized what you have been doing. So what you really need to reflect on, dear friends of Virgo, is, what about you? Where are you? Where is your queen? And guys, even if I have gentlemen listening to me, I am talking as, you know, in a female way, because she's a queen. But at the same time, the message applies also to my male audience. So where is your internal king or queen? This sense of power, this sense of dignity. This card reminds you to reconnect to that. Okay? Libra. Let's see what the cards have to tell you. The Ace of Pentacles. Such an interesting card. So ace, in general, all aces are all about new beginnings. And the Ace of Pentacles is really an opportunity that is being offered to you. As I said, Pentacles are all about stability. Sometimes financial stability, but it's really stability in a broader sense. It can also mean being more in your body, okay? So how do we link this card to you, dear friends of Libra, and most importantly, to the sense of failure, to the idea, to the concept of failure? Well, what is coming up for me, dear friends of Libra, is you are excellent at being a pacemaker. As we have worked on during your season, the problem that you struggle with is being everywhere, being always a pacemaker, but sometimes forgetting about you, because relationships are so important to you that you lose yourself into relationships. So this card is all about you. The failure in this case is not recognizing an opportunity that has been offered to you, because you are so lost into pleasing everyone, into helping everyone, that you lose track of yourself. So this card really reminds you to grab the opportunity when it's up for grab. Okay? Scorpio, happy birthday! Let's see what the cards have to tell you in this day, this Sunday. The 10 of Cups. And I'm amazed that today that the topic is failure. Actually, I have picked lots of cards that have nothing to do with failure. So it's really interesting. What the 10 of Cups mean? Well, the 10 of Cups actually is called the happiness card, because we see an idyllic scene of a family and kids that play, and there is this wonderful rainbow that it's made up of the 10 cups. So how do we link this card with the idea of failure, dear friends of Scorpio? And apparently this card is really the opposite of the idea that we have of Scorpio, because you are the bad guys of the zodiac. You are the guys that are all about sex and rock and roll, and we see a very domestic scene. Well, what does this card mean to me is that most likely, dear friends of Scorpio, you feel like that the people that surround you, that want this, are the failure in your eyes, okay? Or you can also feel that if you haven't reached that by a certain age, you are a failure. Which is actually, by the way, how she starts the book. She says, oh, I was supposed to have done such and such by this age. You're wrong either way. So, if you haven't reached certain things by a certain age, that doesn't make you a failure. Or if you have friends that want this and you don't, that doesn't make them a failure. Okay, so this card, dear friends of Scorpio, really makes you reflect on what do you want, what others people want. And if you haven't, if you haven't reached a certain plan that was in your mind, that doesn't really necessarily make you a failure. Okay, so in this case, failure is not something that is happening in your life. It might be that you have made up an ideal in your mind and you still haven't reached it, and you feel like I'm a complete failure. No, doesn't mean that. What it means actually is that if it's an impossible ideal, it serves to remind you, hang on, why did I make up that impossible ideal? Why did it nourish me? Okay, because for example, sometimes if we have experienced very little love in our life, we make up this impossible love in our mind just to make up for what we didn't receive when we were growing up. So really, dear friends of Scorpio, I invite you to reflect on target, impossible target, and if you haven't reached an objective simply because it was an impossible target, well, that doesn't really make you a failure. Okay? Moving on, Sagittarius, let's see what the cards have to tell you. The Six of Swords, which is interesting card because the Six of Swords is all about a shift in consciousness. Might mean also a journey, like a physical journey. But in this time and age of COVID, I think that a physical journey is unlikely. So I'll go for the shift in consciousness. How do we link this with failure? Well, dear friends of Sagittarius, sometimes a failure, or what we perceive as a failure, is nothing else than a shift in consciousness. So, again, I'll go back to my example of earlier. If we wanted certain things, and perhaps we have achieved certain things, and we really wanted them in our 30s, and now we are in our 40s, and we feel like, is that it? What's that? So only 10 years before you were so grateful and so happy that you had achieved it, and 10 years later you feel yourself a failure because that's all you have achieved. That's a shift in consciousness. So this card really reminds you, dear friends of Sagittarius, to be aware of what you want and also of what you ask for. And by being aware of what you want and what you ask for, it will be much easier for you to understand the difference between what you perceive as a failure, what is really a failure, and also what you can learn from the failure. Let's not forget that you are the philosopher of the zodiac, so you're really good at finding lessons practically everywhere. Okay? Capricorn, almost there, guys. Only 3 signs left. So let's see what's the tarot for the Capricorn. And we have the Knight of Swords. Now, the Knight of Swords is the mightiest of the knights. He really goes into battle with a fervor, okay? He really goes into the quest. Now, how do we link this card to Capricorn and to failure? Well, if there is a card that it's not Capricorn, is this. Because Capricorn rarely goes full head on into anything. However, we do sometimes. So how do we link this card to failure? Well, actually, this card reminds the Capricorn that sometimes the best thing we can do is to fail. Is to try without thinking, without having a plan, without having a strategy, just head on. Go and try. And if you fail, you fail. But at least you have tried. Because you see, sometimes the problem with Capricorn is that we might spend a lot of time strategizing and making a perfect plan, but then we are not so quick in the execution of the plan. So this card really reminds us of the importance of go, try. If you make a mistake, that's okay. And also it reminds us of the importance of owning our mistakes, accepting them, and not to demonize mistakes because they are part of lives. Okay? Aquarius, let's see what the cards have in store for you. The Eight of Pentacles. So the Eight of Pentacles is a card that it's all about, actually, sorry, it's not the Eight of Pentacles, it's the Seven of Pentacles, pardon me. So the Seven of Pentacles is a card that is all about patience, is all about waiting for the crop to grow. Okay, so this guy has put an awful lot of work into this crop and now he's lovingly gazing at the crop. how do we link this to failure, dear friends of Aquarius? Well, one of the problems that sometimes we might have is not to be patient, to be too impatient, okay? And when this happens, it's kind of, we self-sabotage ourselves. We are so close to the end, and instead of waiting for the perfect moment, and we kind of jump too soon, okay? I am also aware that it doesn't actually exist a perfect moment, but it's also a matter, it's a very fine line between waiting to be ready and jumping in before being ready. So that's when failure comes in your case, dear friends of Aquarius. So this card really seems to remind you, put the work in, lovingly gaze at what you have done, and hang in there. Wait until you will feel it, until you will feel that you are ready, and then jump in and do your thing, okay? But don't do it too soon. And most importantly, don't lose sight of what you want, because this guy is looking at the crop. He's not going away. He's actually staying. And that's exactly what this card is telling you. If you have been working hard on something, now don't go away because you feel you have done enough. You need to stay until you have completed your task, okay? Otherwise, that's when failure comes in, because you're so close, and you stop, like literally just before your big break or your big win, okay? Last but not least, my friends, Pisces. Let's see what the card have to tell you. It's the Ten of Wands. Here we are. How do we link this to failure? Well, the Ten of Wands is a closure. And there is also a guy that is being overwhelmed, okay, because he is carrying too much. So how do we link this to failure, dear friends of Pisces? When do you feel you are failing? Perhaps when you feel overwhelmed by something, okay? So the message of this card is, are you overwhelmed by something right now? Do you feel like you are doing more than your fair share? But at the same time, is there a failing in communication? Because if you are shouldering more than what you should do, have you asked for help? Have you communicated clearly enough that you needed help? And if there is a failure in that, that's where you need to look into, okay? So in this case, if you're carrying too much, it might lie in the fact that you are failing at asking for help, okay? So in this case, you need to look in that and open yourself to receive help from others, okay? Guys, all of the 12 signs are done for this week. I hope you enjoyed my reading. I will talk to you again very soon. Thank you so much for being here with me, and I'll thank you. I will talk to you again very soon. Bye for now.